It looks like President Donald Trump is already backing down, barely a month after hitting Canada with a 25% tariff. Now Trump urgently wants Canadian oil, and he's turning back to the Keystone XL pipeline to get it. Trump publicly stated that the U.S. should bring back the company that was building Keystone, likely referring to TC Energy Corp., and urged them to return and finish the job. This is a major reversal from his recent threats to turn Canada into the so-called 51st state of the United States. The stakes are enormous, and it now seems like Trump may actually need Canada to help rescue the American economy with a steady supply of crude oil. Without it, we might witness not only economic troubles, but also a breakdown in foreign relations sooner than expected. So, is this all part of some strategic chaos, or just plain contradiction? Please subscribe, and let's unpack this intense geopolitical showdown. President Trump has once again caused confusion with his unpredictable energy policies. His recent statements have left experts, supporters, and critics puzzled. In a span of just weeks, Trump has swung from declaring the U.S. an energy superpower that doesn't need foreign oil, to pleading for the revival of the Keystone XL pipeline, a project deeply tied to oil imports from Canada. This sharp back and forth raises big questions about whether the U.S. is really energy independent, or still deeply reliant on its northern neighbor. On January 15, 2025, Trump posted on Truth Social claiming America no longer needs oil from Canada. He downplayed Canada's role as if it were a minor issue. At the time, many Americans applauded the message. To them, it was proof of America's strength and confidence. But just weeks later, on February 24th, everything changed. Trump blasted President Biden for canceling Keystone XL. He promised to revive the project even faster than before. His message was clear. Canceling Keystone XL destroyed America's energy future. This dramatic turnaround painted a grim picture of a country that now seemed desperate for the same Canadian oil Trump previously dismissed. So what's really going on here? Let's look at the facts. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, in 2024, the U.S. imported 4.42 million barrels of crude oil per day from Canada. That's not a small number. That's 60% of all oil the U.S. imports globally. From Texas to Illinois, American refineries rely heavily on this constant flow of Canadian oil to produce gas, diesel, and other fuels that power daily life. Without it, experts warn that fuel prices could rise, factories could slow down, and regular Americans would feel the pressure at the gas pump. Trump's supporters say his changing position is smart, a way to stay flexible and protect America's interests. But critics see chaos. Energy analyst Sarah Coleman puts it plainly. One day he says, America doesn't need Canadian oil. The next day he's begging to restart their pipeline. She warns that if Keystone XL comes back, the U.S. could be locked into decades of dependence on Canadian oil, something that directly contradicts Trump's own message about energy independence. The stakes are massive. Even though U.S. oil production is strong under both Trump and Biden, imports still play a critical role. Canadian oil remains a lifeline, especially as the world becomes more unstable. Bringing Keystone XL back could guarantee a steady supply. But at what cost? Critics argue it would only increase reliance on fossil fuels and push climate change further out of control. And Trump's mixed messages only add more uncertainty. So is this just a strategic move to look powerful? Or a quiet admission that the U.S. can't afford to cut Canada loose? Let's take a closer look at how important this pipeline really is. The Keystone XL pipeline has been a massive and extremely controversial project. Its story has been full of starts and stops. It began all the way back in 2008 when Canadian company TC Energy proposed building a 1,200-mile pipeline. The goal? To transport 830,000 barrels of thick tar sands oil every day from Alberta, Canada, down to refineries on the U.S. Gulf Coast. Sounds simple, but the project has been anything but. It's become one of the most debated energy issues between Canada and the U.S. in recent times, and now it's threatening to come back yet again. In 2015, President Barack Obama shut the project down, arguing that it would worsen climate change and bring more risks than rewards. In 2017, President Trump brought it back to life, cheering the jobs and energy independence it promised. But in 2021, President Joe Biden took office and, on his first day, signed an executive order to cancel it again. By June of that year, TC Energy officially gave up, dismantled parts of the pipeline, and walked away. Most people thought that was the final chapter. But now, with Trump signaling his desire to revive it once more, the Keystone XL saga is far from over. But here we are. It's 2025 and Trump is back in the headlines. He's posting on Truth Social claiming that the Keystone XL pipeline could be restarted almost instantly under his leadership, if he gets the chance. If that really happens, it could mean thousands of new construction jobs and tighter control over America's energy supply. But wait, it's not that simple. The company behind the project, now known as Southbow Corp after TC Energy's restructuring, says they're done dealing with the headaches of Keystone XL. And here's the key question. Does the U.S. even need this pipeline anymore? The U.S. Energy Information Administration reports that American oil production hit a record 13.6 million barrels per day in 2024. That's a huge amount of oil coming from within the country itself. So, why import more from Canada? That's what some energy experts are asking. On the other side of the debate, critics have serious concerns. They're pointing to the pipeline's rocky history. In 2017, the original Keystone pipeline, not even the XL extension, leaked in South Dakota. It spilled a shocking 47,000 gallons of crude oil into the soil. Cleanup was brutal and raised red flags about what a future XL spill might look like. Environmental organizations like the Natural Resources Defense Council are also raising alarms. They argue that tar sands oil, the thick type Keystone XL would carry, emits 81% more climate-warming gases than regular crude. That's a massive issue in a world already battling wildfires, floods, and extreme heat events tied to global warming. Trump's team sees this project as a win for energy security and for job creation. But opponents say it's a looming environmental catastrophe. More spills, more pollution, and a big setback for clean energy goals. And with U.S. oil already booming, and Southbow showing zero interest, Keystone's return feels more like a risky sequel nobody asked for. Will it actually come back? That's the billion-dollar question. Now here's where things really heat up. The biggest problem isn't just Keystone. It's Trump's attitude toward Canada since stepping back into power. Remember, Trump announced a bold and divisive move, a massive 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico. Energy products would face a slightly lower 10% tariff. The plan starts in March, and it's already creating waves. Trump's logic is simple. They tax us, we tax them back. But here's the twist. Trump is the one kicking off this tariff war, and it's not just tough talk. It's a serious escalation that could impact regular people on both sides of the border. Canada and Mexico are two of the U.S.'s biggest trading partners. Combined, they handle billions of dollars in daily trade with America. Canada alone sends around 75% of its exports, from oil to cars, down south, according to Statistics Canada. Mexico, meanwhile, relies on the U.S. for nearly 80% of its own exports, says the Atlantic Council. Trump's plan threatens to break this flow, and that could mean higher prices for Americans on essentials like gas, food, and cars. Canada didn't sit back. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded fast with retaliatory tariffs worth $30 billion on U.S. goods. Everything from beef and bourbon to washing machines. And that's just phase one. Phase two? An additional $125 billion in tariffs by March 25th, hitting products like corn and car parts if things don't cool off. Some Ontario liquor stores even pulled Jack Daniels from their shelves in protest. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce warns this tit-for-tat could erupt into a full-scale trade war, threatening the $2.7 billion in daily U.S.-Canada trade. That means lost jobs and rising costs for both countries. And just when things couldn't get more heated, Trump took it up a notch. He posted a wild idea on Truth Social, suggesting Canada should give up its independence and become America's 51st state. He claimed that without the U.S., Canada is doomed, and joining would mean no tariffs, lower taxes, and top-tier military protection. The reaction? Instant outrage. Trudeau shut the idea down immediately, saying there's no chance. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre also made it clear Canada isn't for sale. Protests erupted across the country from Toronto to Vancouver, with people holding signs that read, "Canada is not for sale." Why is Trump so obsessed with Canada? It likely comes down to resources. Canada holds the third largest oil reserves in the world, 170 billion barrels according to Natural Resources Canada. It also has rare minerals like lithium, critical for electric vehicles. Experts think Trump's tariffs are a pressure tactic to force Canada into a new trade deal or open up access to those valuable resources. But Canadians aren't interested. This isn't the 1800s. There won't be any annexing. The stakes are high. The U.S., Canada, and Mexico have spent decades building trade ties through deals like NAFTA and the USMCA. These new tariffs could undo years of cooperation, hurting both families and businesses. In the U.S., consumers could soon face higher costs on everything from Canadian lumber to Mexican avocados. In Canada, the dollar is already shaky, and companies fear losing access to their largest export market. Right now, it's a tense standoff. Trump is betting that his hardball tactics will make Canada and Mexico cave. But if history is any guide, like the 2018 steel tariffs that pushed U.S. appliance prices way up, this could backfire badly. So as talks loom, the big question is, will common sense prevail, or are we on the brink of a full-scale economic showdown? One thing's for sure, this tariff war wouldn't spare anyone. And that brings us back to the deeper issue, how Trump's return to office is straining America's long-standing relationships. Across the globe, the U.S. is clashing with its allies. Canada isn't alone. Europe is feeling the pressure too. Trump is once again floating the idea of 25% tariffs on European imports, and blasting NATO allies for not spending enough on defense. It's not new. He did the same in his first term, pulling out of the Paris Agreement and sparking trade fights with longtime partners. But this time the tone feels even sharper. Leaders in Germany and France are warning against pushing borders too far. Denmark is pushing back at Trump's revived interest in buying Greenland. Frustration is building. Some countries are already looking elsewhere, forming closer ties with China or Russia as a buffer against U.S. unpredictability. Is this the end of U.S. alliances? Probably not. But it's definitely a major strain. If Trump keeps pushing, allies may not just distance themselves, they could realign. China is already courting countries like Colombia. Russia is watching closely. For now, most allies aren't ready to cut ties completely. But the tension is real. If Trump keeps up this pressure, American influence could weaken significantly. Now, back to the oil question. America still has a problem. Many refineries in the Midwest and Gulf Coast are built specifically for Canada's heavy crude. Switching to lighter U.S. shale or oil from Saudi Arabia isn't easy. Retooling refineries would cost billions and take years, and that could drive gas prices up by $1 or more per gallon. U.S. shale is also reaching its limits. The best drilling spots are drying up. Even with Trump's push for deregulation, like opening up Alaska's Arctic refuge, new supply would take time and face environmental battles. So yes, America could rely more on its own oil, but not right away. And definitely not without some serious pain at the pump. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth analysis. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.